Hey everyone, my name is Meera. Welcome back to my channel. When I was a kid, I couldn't fathom the idea of liking classics as a genre. I tried reading a bunch of different books, but the writing was so alienating. I wouldn't understand anything, and I was so appalled by people who would read classics back to back. Here, I couldn't even get through one book. Especially when we had to read a certain title for school, I found it to be such a chore. I just wanted to put aside that classic and get back to the books that I was really interested in. As I grew older, I realized that there were certain things I was doing wrong, or maybe certain things I should have been trying while reading classics. And I know that there are many people out there who still, even today, can't get into the groove of how a classic novel is written. So I thought I should make this video and give you guys some tips about how to read a classic, how to better understand it, and how to make the most out of the writing. The first thing I'm going to say is that you should pick a genre of your liking, whether that is drama or horror or fantasy or crime. Now you'd probably think like, duh, that's of course what we're going to be doing, but you probably don't realize the importance of picking a topic or a category that you're really comfortable with, because classics by themselves are already really different from the kind of writing that you're used to in today's date. So if you are someone who's into crime thrillers and you can't stand the idea of drama or romance, picking up Pride and Prejudice would really be the wrong move, because you're already not predisposed to enjoying that kind of a writing. So yeah, within classics, pick a genre of your liking. That way it would be much easy for you to get accustomed to the setting and the story. Second, don't read it with a 21st century perspective. You were born into this time and space, but that novel was not. It was written centuries ago, probably during a time when things like slavery were prevalent and women couldn't get employed even if they wanted to. So if you're going to evaluate and judge the characters of Jane Eyre based on what you think people should be like today, then you're in for a big disappointment. This is something I feel like a lot of us should keep in mind when you're reading classics. Know that the people that they're meant to reflect existed a long time ago, and at that time society was much different than what it's like now. So if you're going to have this unreasonable standard for what classics should contain, then I don't think you're going to enjoy it anyway. Next, keep a guide handy. I don't know if there are guides for every classic out there, but at least for the most popular ones there are. So what guides do is that they analyze a book section by section or based on chapters. So if you're finding a book increasingly difficult to grasp, then you could refer to the guide after reading every couple of chapters. This way, despite the writing style and the complexity of the topics dealt with, you will still understand what's going on in the book. Fourth, underline or mark key events in the book. That way, when you're done reading the entire book, you can still go back to these important parts and refresh your memory so that you have a complete understanding of the entire book. Sometimes it happens with me that because classics tend to be on the longer side and their writing tends to baffle me at times, I tend to forget or not completely digest what happened in a certain scene. So if you were to mark out these parts that you think are important, I think it would definitely aid you in the process of reading a classic. What works for me is to not cram a classic novel in one day. If it were a modern contemporary novel, I'd probably finish it in half a day. But with classics, I like to take my time, space it out, and read it over the course of a week. So I would suggest that you read classics at a more leisurely pace than you would any other novel. Next, buddy read it with someone. It is much better for two people to be reading and discussing an obscure text than for one person to be reading it and trying to interpret it by themselves. There have been times when I would miss out on something that the author was trying to convey, and so what has helped me comprehend stories in a more wholesome manner is to discuss it with other people, to understand, to know what they thought about it. That way I'm able to revisit a book and see it in a new light, and maybe pick up on some connotations that I would have missed out on when I read it the first time. To understand the nitty-gritty and the intricacies of a scene, you should definitely try buddy reading classics with someone. I think it would definitely be a much more enjoyable experience. Okay, this pains me a little to say, and I normally would not suggest this, but try and watch the screen adaptation of a classic novel before or while reading it. I think it helps you visualize what's happening in the book. It helps you lock down on those little details. You can piece together what's happening in the book in a much more easier manner. The last and one of the most important points is to do a little background research. In my opinion, to understand a certain time period is to understand the author's point of view and the context of the novel. So when you decide that you're going to pick up a classic novel, let's say The Color Purple by Alice Walker, I think you would appreciate the reading experience much more if you were to look into the historical aspect of the novel, of when it was written, of the author herself, and maybe understand a little bit about the author's personal life, because there would be little impressions of the author and the time period in the novel. So if you were to learn these things before getting into the classic novel, I think you would be able to comprehend the importance of it. That would further enable you to make the most of the writing. So these are some suggestions I have for you if you want to start reading classics on a more regular basis, and if you want to absorb most of what's written in the book. I think it would be helpful. If you enjoy watching this video, then please do like, share, subscribe, click on the bell icon, and in the comments let me know whether you enjoy reading classics or not. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again soon. Bye.